Asynchronous Teaching with Navigate Math. The first 2 units, teachers spend time developing essential skills necessary for students to be successful, learning in blended learning environments in general, and with student-centered learning experiences starting in Unit 3. After having laid that foundation, teachers are ready to begin the transition to have students move at their own pace and exercise choice in learning experiences, assessments, and homework. Teachers do have the option to hold off on that, and when they, the teacher, are ready, or, if necessary, the students needing more time, when students are ready, can then decide to transition later. The nice part about Navigate Math is it's personalized learning and personalized teaching, meeting both where they are in their practice and is flexible enough to be ready for them to transition when they demonstrate they feel ready. Let's take a look at Unit 3 and begin discussing what asynchronous teaching looks like. Starting in Unit 3, the diagnostic students take begins to change with respect to how they use the data. In the first 2 units, the diagnostics are merely a pre-test which students will use to set goals and then measure against to determine growth by the end of a unit. Starting in Unit 3, the diagnostic has students take their results and, after performing a reflection to analyze those results, move on to process the data additionally to determine their own individual pathway through the unit. We have lessons and the assessments within each, and while the grade out boxes are required assessments all students must go through, specific tasks or assessments students can essentially test out of if they've demonstrated mastery on the diagnostic test on all questions associated with those specific assessments. Teachers can make copies of this organizer for students, or students can make a copy of the Google Doc themselves and chart their individual progress through the unit. This allows students to stay in their zone of proximal development more accurately and avoid busy work. Asynchronous learning has both planning and facilitation phases, just like synchronous learning. The planning, however, shifts compared to the synchronous teaching. Where in synchronous, teachers are planning to do direct instruction, planning in the asynchronous teaching requires teachers to shift from direct instruction to responsive instruction using data to best inform planning at individual, group, and class levels. Starting with the results from the diagnostic, the teacher can get a very good idea of the highest growth areas for their class across the unit and the areas where perhaps support will not be quite as necessary. Getting that bird's eye view to start is a powerful way to begin to prepare planning for the unit as a whole. When planning, the teacher is preparing for specific components in class. Now, classes and a typical structure can vary whether students are doing 60-minute daily periods, perhaps not every other day, or perhaps every other day block schedule periods, or even an integrated 30-minute-a-day approach. Whatever the situation might be, planning takes on a unique character in the asynchronous learning model. First, we still have launch, core, and closing components of the class. The teacher will plan a common launch and will check homework and do attendance while students are attending to the launch. The teacher will also debrief that launch, and it's often to be done to help build non-cognitive skills, such as growth mindset or any types of other skills that are currently being worked on by the class. This is because students, regardless of where they happen to be in the curriculum, can all access non-cognitive skills. So this makes an ideal topic for teachers to use as a launch. Notice the difference, however, when students are working through the launch, they do have their homework out like they did in the first 2 units, except now when they're done, they also have to look at their weekly goals and make sure they set their work up for that specific class so they can stay on track. Weekly goals, something to be discussed in another screencast, can include a specific number of assessments they intend to complete, certain ways they tend to work, for example, how many times they plan to help another person on their team, whether they want to work on taking notes from a new type of resource, things such as that. And having the moment to get organized and look at their data at the start of every class is an essential part of the class period to make it happen with fidelity. Planning for the core of the class is where things really change for the teacher. Looking at data in the Data tab and also at specific real-time assessment results, the teacher can do various things even though students are in different places. For example, they can look at how students happen to be doing and match students who are high-performing and students who are struggling in power pairs for a short while during the core of the class, perhaps no more than 5 minutes, to help support each other. While that's occurring, they can also set up any students who are prepared to take and have scheduled exams with their teacher in that process so they can be taking exams on the side while the class is occurring. Other types of things going on in the core of the class while the teacher is working include doing individual check-ins, either teacher or student scheduled. Sometimes the teacher looks at the data and can identify 2 to 3 people to check in with very briefly. Other times the students request. They can do these individual check-ins to provide quick help, perhaps review an assessment, or to discuss the individual pathway from the diagnostic and any potential necessary adjustments. This all happens perhaps within the first 10 minutes of class, although this entire model is flexible and modular depending on need. Looking at data, generally the teacher will plan 1 to 2 mini lessons. A key part of Navigate Math is teachers do not stop teaching. They simply change instruction from direct to responsive. In a moment, we'll look at data and try and figure out ways that teachers can identify individuals to pull from mini lessons. The teachers will themselves write short 5 to 10 minute lessons that will help diagnose misunderstandings and help students remake those understandings correctly. While this is going on in between various different tasks, the teacher will get up and circulate to provide help, hold students accountable, and give feedback. Finally, the teacher will plan for closing, making sure everyone can set their own homework, and will debrief the class on process, how the class, whether with respect to working in teams or individuals, and how they did with respect to their goals either as a class or a team or individuals occurred over the course of the period. While teachers are planning for these different components, students will either be learning independently or being assessed independently, also working collaboratively, and, more importantly, doing tasks collaboratively that drive discourse. So students are forced to interact with each other in rigorous ways, either giving each other peer review feedback or taking team quizzes. Students go through the process of reflection, both on their individual and teamwork, and take the time to organize themselves, setting their own homework based on their data, whatever their next assessment or assessment to go back and redo may be, and review their progress towards their weekly goals and make sure they're prepared for any upcoming due dates or meetings they may have. Let's go take a look at data, which will help teachers planning these various aspects of the Navigate Math asynchronous lesson. The Guru Learning Navigator first and foremost allows the teacher to understand where their students are. This class of 9 students happens to have 2 in Unit 1, 7 in Unit 3. That type of distribution can give a rough understanding of where people are and help teachers manage their classes and support them. They can see also down to specific lessons where the students are and where the students themselves individually by their icons happen to reside within a lesson. Student location working through the curriculum alone helps inform planning and management. Moving over to the Data tab, when planning and not facilitating, it's easiest to look across units and drill down to see how students are doing. The results here are calculated only based on what students attempt. Untried assessments do not go in as zeros. It's important to understand that an 80% needs the context of completion. When planning, it's important to know that, for example, someone who has an 80% but has only done 1 out of the 50 assessments in the unit needs to understand that they're a little bit far from being finished. Teachers go through the Data tab during their planning to try and identify the different students for different components of class. Looking back at the various planning components, there could be a topic that the entire class, with respect to an academic topic, may need to look at again for the common launch. Or it could be just trying to identify power pairs. Power pairs, for example, if I notice someone is struggling particularly with a lesson and has worked through already quite a few of the assessments, and someone else has been quite successful, I may drill down and identify who those students are and match them. Perhaps Taylor Swift needs to support Lady Gaga or Steph Curry with respect to this lesson. I can drill down further and create a couple of those pairs, noticing, for example, that Taylor Swift has done quite well on prime and composite numbers, where Lady Gaga may need a little help. Taylor Swift may work for 3 to 4 minutes with Lady Gaga and Steph Curry, while I may identify another person who may work with 1 or 2 others. This is an efficient way to support people while the teacher does individual check-ins and group lessons. When planning mini lessons, teachers will often dive down into specific assessments and identify individuals who may need pulling for additional support. For example, anyone with a dark orange or red may be on the list to pull a group of 3 to perhaps no more than 8 people up to a group setting where the teacher can intervene with a lesson of their own, ranging from using manipulatives to additional assessments and real-time on-air intervention to help diagnose and reteach specific concepts. Mini lessons can be built based on student need in this way, or it could be that some students are skipping or not working on specific tasks and need to be brought together to work together to feel more confident to work on them. They could be writing tasks, or perhaps how to demonstrate taking notes, or just on a specific concept. Another way to look at the data and determine who you want to build mini lessons for is either based on study time, with students working too fast through things, or moving out a level and looking across multiple lessons, trying to identify people who are in very different places. For example, if it's a group of people who happen to be working on a specific lesson or are perhaps multiple units apart, the teacher may work with a group who happen to still be in this example, Unit 1, versus a bunch who happen to be in Unit 3. Perhaps some are moving at an even quicker pace and happen to be up in Unit 5. So basing mini lessons based on location throughout the curriculum is one method, based on specific high need is another, and based on avoiding doing specific tasks is even another. Students who are struggling through a unit may have their teacher create one-on-one check-ins to review their individual pathway from their diagnostic. This may have the teacher say to the student, look, while you have technically shown in the diagnostic that you don't have to do specific lower rigor tasks, I'm going to ask you to go back and do them because your current results are saying otherwise. Looking at the Data tab, looking at student diagnostics and their self-reported scores from various things, such as Khan Academy missions or writing tasks, give a full picture for how to determine the power pairs, the individual check-ins, who you're specifically going to provide help to in those check-ins, how to alter pathways, and most importantly, who is pulled for mini lessons and how they are best supported. It's worth noting, going back to the course map, that students can have multiple attempts on specific assessments. Teachers can even create new assessments for when they pull small groups and mini lessons, and then use the Go Live feature to take a look and see, as the students are taking the new assessment or a retake, how to best support them. This can help in the small group to more quickly target intervention and see misunderstandings. The on-air real-time dashboard here is not just for whole class use, but is very powerful also when pulling those small groups. Finally, when students begin assigning themselves their own homework based on where they currently are with their assessments and their progress, the teacher needs a way to manage this. Sometimes students need more support in the assignment process, and teachers can directly help them do so. To manage the process regardless of how the homework is being assigned, a common Google Doc is a popular way to do so. Students versus the activities and tasks that are being assigned, where everyone can edit and directly input what they're going to be doing for homework and will expect to be checked the next day, and then having the teacher lock the tab so no one can change it is a great way to do things. Teachers can make a duplicate of the tab and repeat the process the next day while preserving a history of past homework. While this is a modified view, the idea is the same. Additional systems and routines to support students, specifically weekly goal setting and reflection processes, and cooperative work processes such as teamwork competitions and supports, can go a long way towards enhancing the Navigate math experience. The array of various tools are completely modular, however, and teachers can grow into using them as both they and their students are ready. The shift to student-centered learning, with students moving at their own pace and exercising choice, also has teachers shift their practice from direct instruction to responsive instruction, both parties maximizing student learning and leveraging and enhancing the teacher's role in new and powerful ways.